Welcome. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Laurie. I'm the project manager here at the Iceland School of Energy. Today we have a talk, our first of 2021, of alumni in the industry. This is just a platform where we bring back some alumni who are doing really cool stuff in the industry, who are getting that experience after their master's degree, and then having them come back and talk to our community. But without further ado, we have Lovise Ve. Marie graduated in 2020. She was from Norway and is now back in Norway working as a project engineer. And I'll basically leave it to Marie to kind of start introducing herself in full.
Right. Hi. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this. I'm excited to talk about what I do. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and let's see if I can share my screen. All right. Are we good? Thumbs up? Yep. Right. So my name, for those who don't know, Lovise Ve. I was in Iceland I moved there in 2016, and then I moved back here in 2018, and then I defended my thesis in early 2020. I moved back here because I got a job in the Arctic, and yeah, I'm still up here, so I want to say I'm thriving. I don't know. I'm very happy here, at least. All right. Right. I'm originally from down here. Do you see my arrow as well, by the way?
Yeah, we can see your pointer.
All right, good. Okay. I'm from a place called Karmøy, which is an island on the southwest coast. Right now, I live and work up here. And for reference, this is the Arctic Circle. Reykjavik is about here. Yeah, so it's a little bit darker where I am, in case that's any comfort to you. I moved from this, just open ocean, windy island, and Narvik is more like this. Not more like, it is this, exactly this. Yeah, this is the view from my current balcony, by the way. Okay, so my background is energy engineering. I studied my bachelor's at Bergen University College on the west coast of Norway in energy technology. And then I went straight to Iceland for the sustainable energy engineering path. My focus was, I wanted to focus on wind power. That is also what I focused on during my bachelor's degree. But I figured I needed something more than that. So I took a couple power systems classes and energy economics. I also had an internship at Landsvirkjun, where we planned some offshore wind sites, or we tried to figure out which sites around the island of Iceland would best suit, were most suitable for offshore wind. And then I also went further on that and wrote my thesis on a hypothetical offshore wind farm just north of Reykjavik. All right. Just a little bit about Nordkraft, where I work. We are a regional power company. We do essentially everything that has to do with power, from developing and constructing the actual hydropower plants and wind power plants, we're also in charge of the production. We're in charge of the local distribution, the transmission grid, the distribution grid, and obviously the control center. And we also own, we have a daughter company that is in charge of the sales. So Nordkraft isn't actually, we don't sell power out to the end customer. We sell it to our daughter company, and then they sell it up to the end customer. I kept the color on this one because this is where I am. I'm in the project part. We plan, develop, and construct new projects. But we're also, even though we're up concentrated up north here, which is here on the bigger picture, we're also fairly big. I don't want to say big. We're definitely operating on a national level as well. We have a couple of hydropower plants in the south and in the central Norway as well. These gray ones, light gray ones, are wind farms. So we have 3 wind farms, and the rest are hydropower plants, a mixture of small scale and larger scale, like reservoirs as well. And what we do here in the project department, we're about 14 people here. We basically do everything from greenfield to fully operational projects. And my focus is on these first couple of steps here. Initial project evaluation. I deal a lot with landowners and landowner agreements. And then we're also working on the concession applications and impact assessment studies. And then my very excellent colleagues do the rest, and hopefully I'll get to take part of that as well. But planning a wind power project in Norway takes a little more than a year, let me tell you. Usually, yeah. Right, so what I do, my main focus is to develop new wind power projects onshore. Nordkraft is not, we're not big enough to venture into offshore. Yeah, Norway's coastline is not the same as Denmark and Germany. It gets really deep really fast. And if you want them offshore, you're essentially going to have them like 10 meters off of the shore. And then you might as well put them onshore because it's too deep. And so what I do is a lot of map studies, looking at the wind data that's available, the topography, infrastructure already existing, like roads, where does the grid go? Where are the drinking water sources? Where do people live? Yeah, that kind of things. And once you find a good spot, we work in a GIS map that we have, and so we can draw in the interesting sites when we think we find one. And then we try to do some research on who the landowners are, which is an interesting thing to do in Norway, because once you get above a certain altitude, there's really not a lot of information, because it's all either assumed that it's owned by the government, or people's proof of ownership are probably written in the 1800s in handwriting that is impossible to read. So you kind of just have to call someone with an address nearby and kind of hope that you find someone who knows something about the area. So I've had a lot of interesting conversations with your average farmer who hates his neighbor, and if he, yeah, it's, oh man, it's very interesting. And so we're traveling around all over Norway and meeting these people if they want to meet us. That's also a whole point, because Norway right now is kind of in a hiatus when it comes to wind power developing. It's not very popular for reasons that I don't understand. Yeah, so calling landowners and asking if they want to discuss their land and how suitable we think it is for wind power. You might get yelled at, you might get cursed at, they might hang up on you. If you're invited to come talk to them, that's a plus. It's yeah, it's a very interesting situation to be in right now. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing so far for wind power. I'm also working on Nordkraft's hydrogen initiative, where we think that our knowledge about our local area here, and just our network with the other regional energy companies, we believe we are the perfect part to develop the hydrogen infrastructure up north here. The Norwegian government, they launched a hydrogen strategy earlier this summer. It wasn't as concrete as we had hoped it would be, but it definitely shows that we're also moving towards maybe not the same, but similar goals as Europe is with they had a very offensive hydrogen strategy. They're not going to sit back and wait for anything to come to them. So we're really hoping that the Norwegian government is doing something similar soon, because up north here, we have a power surplus, and we want to develop our own region. And if we could take part in helping the hydrogen infrastructure in Norway just exist, then yes, that would help us a lot. I'm also involved in something called Smart Narvik, which is a project in cooperation with Smart Innovation Norway and the local municipality here, to look at solutions to make the city smarter. And then what I like maybe the most, I get to do some drone stuff. I have the drone in the office, so if anybody needs anything done with the drone, they come to me and I get to go outside and fly when it's not windy enough, that is. So this is, okay, I'll talk while this plays. It's sped up like 1,000,000 times because they move extremely slowly. This is from a project that just finished. This is from 2 summers ago, when they transported blades up a mountain that is around 650 meters above sea level. This road starts at the bottom of a fjord, and there are no roads that go to that bottom of the fjord, so everything has to be shipped in by boat. And then they drive up 650 meters. You have 12 turns like this. The inclination on the steepest part is about 20%, and then you have 10% in the turns. It was an absolutely crazy project, but it's so far from people that I don't think really people know about this project and how cool it is. I was too late to the party because they were just about to finish this whole thing when I started here 2 years ago. But it's been so cool to see just in the finishing phase, and then being asked to come and document some of this has been absolutely crazy. The background here is from another wind farm that we have in Vesterålen. Oh, it's so beautiful here. You have to come visit. Okay, so wind power planning in Norway. We like to say that we have these 7 different phases. I've been here for 2 years and we are still at phase 0 because of our hiatus. They're not even accepting any application for concessions at all, and they haven't been for well over a year now. So the entire wind industry in Norway, we're kind of desperate because we know that the electricity demand is going to go up, and if we can't start planning now, we're going to end up in a deficit, because this phase 0 to 3 has on average taken 10 years in Norway, with our previous projects. If you compare to Sweden and Finland, our neighboring countries, they're much more progressive than we are. They've taken maybe 4 to 5 years, so less than half. And then people are still sitting here and wondering, oh, what are we doing wrong? Why are they so much better at this than we are? I'm like, well, maybe look at the system a little bit. It takes 10 years. Yeah, so we're still in phase 0. My goal in my career is to get through all of these phases. I mean, maybe not decommissioning. I definitely want to be through phase 5. Once I've done that, I can retire, I think. We'll see. A couple of things to keep in mind when you're doing this in Norway is that we have It's extremely windy in certain areas, but those areas usually don't have people that need the power. And of course, the complex terrain also makes it a little bit difficult. Here you can see the road that the drone shot from previously was filmed. This is a winter shot, obviously. Yeah, so the boat comes from, I mean, the town is here, and so we have to go by boat here, and then the bottom of the fjord is on the other side here, and the road goes around. Yeah. Also, Norway has 5 pricing zones that you need to take into account when you're planning where in the country you want to, where you want to search, really, because they vary. Electricity is the cheapest in the zone that we are in up north here, because we have a lot of production and we don't have as many people as they do down south to actually use it. And that also leads to this point called marginal grid loss element, meaning that even though, if we compare, say, the Oslo region or the southeastern part where our capital is, they don't have the wind speed that we do up here. They don't have the areas that we do up here, but their electricity is more expensive. And if you are a power producer in the right area, you will get paid to put power onto the grid. If you are up here, we have to pay to put our power onto the grid and send it out, because we're in such a surplus area that it costs more for us to actually send the power out to the grid. But if you are a consumer, it works for you if you're up north, because then you get paid to use the power. You get a little discount off of your electricity bill, because we desperately need people to use the power because we have so much of it up here. Another tricky thing here is that for some reason, Norwegians tend to think of energy in very different ways. We have absolutely no problem sending off oil and gas to other countries without us thinking that that is energy. But our electricity, no, you can't send that to other countries. That's made from our wind and our water. But the oil and gas industry, that's just out in the ocean, we can't see it here from onshore. Sure, send that. The only thing we notice is the money coming in. So we're also trying to do a little bit of public education there, I guess. We need something to change, because even though our electricity in Norway is basically 100%, I think we're 99% renewable. We have a little 1% that's from Svalbard, or because they still have coal. But we're at 94% hydro, and then 3 to 4% wind. So our electricity is renewable, but our energy use in Norway is still more than half fossil based. And if our goal is to cut more than 50% of our emissions by 2030. And I don't know how people think that we're supposed to reach that goal if we don't build more, because we don't have enough. Our surplus is not enough to meet the future demand that we will have by 2030. Yeah. And then on top of that, you get COVID, so you can't travel around and meet potential landowners that you want to discuss with. So it's an interesting situation to be in right now. Let's see, what was my next? Okay, so what Nordkraft has decided to do is also focus on developing sites for energy intensive industries. Because of the power surplus that we have up here, and the colder temperatures, it is ideal for say data centers or anything energy intensive. So they've invested heavily in this concept that we call greenest, cheapest. And I'm going to show you guys a video. It's a promo video made for foreigners. So excuse the extremely American accent on this video. Let's see. I'm going to move it over here.
Data center sites in northern Norway, greenest, cheapest. The combination of wind and hydropower in northern Norway offers you 100% renewable energy solutions 24/7. We produce 20 terawatt hours of energy per year, and we only use half of it ourselves. Northern Norway offers you the lowest power prices in Europe, and with negative grid fees, low taxes, and reduced need for cooling, you will save millions. Northern Norway has some of the strongest grid connection points, and we can connect your data center to the grid at our ready-to-build sites. Nordkraft will be your partner, facilitating all infrastructure at your site. All you have to do is build your data center. It's as simple as plug and play. Northern Norway is also a meeting point for people from all over the world. We have 2 universities, a variety of festivals, and a thriving high-tech industry. Not to mention sports at Norway's highest level and world-class ski resorts. And don't forget the Northern Lights. Powered land by Nordkraft. Data center sites in northern Norway. Greenest, cheapest.
Right. Don't forget the Northern Lights, hey? All right. I blew through that one. All right. Any questions or comments? If not, you can also feel free to write down my email or number if you think of something.
Well, I guess before we jump to the questions, let's all use the clap feature. Just give Marie a round of applause.
Wait, does that exist?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Chris, put your hands behind the wheel.
On the wheel, not behind the wheel.
On the wheel. Well, yes. I have a lot of questions, but I'll maybe lead the this Q&A period by saying that it's so interesting to me that the energy producer is looking for consumers, because normally it's the other way around. You have an energy intensive industry that builds a power plant, and so for you to have this surplus is a really unique position.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we're on both sides of this because we want to develop our region. We want more people to live here. We want, a lot of the northern towns are seeing people moving down south. We're losing our people. So we want to bring the interesting jobs up here. And of course we have the cheapest electricity. So it makes sense that they're up here. We have the greenest, it makes sense. And also, if we have the cheapest electricity, that also means that our production team, they're not getting paid as much for the same electricity as they are down south. So if we can get more people to use it, that's also better for the company.
Definitely. Definitely. I guess before I jump into anything else, if you have a question, you can either leave it in the chat or you can just open your mic and just ask away.
Marie, I had a question.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. So when you were talking about the challenges of offshore wind turbines and Norway's deep coastal waters, I was wondering if Nordkraft is looking at floating offshore wind farms. And while you're presenting, I took a quick peek on Wikipedia, and there's actually an operational floating offshore wind farm in Norway. It's by Equinor near Stavanger.
It's actually 10 kilometers outside the island where I'm from, and I could see it from my childhood home.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's just one turbine. It was a test turbine. I think it was put up there in 2009. And I mean, Equinor they just won a tender, didn't they, to build an offshore wind farm. Was it floating also? It was offshore, at least outside of New York. But they're also trying to build a floating wind farm outside of Norway to provide electricity to one of our oil platforms, or one of their oil platforms. But that technology with the floating ones is so new and expensive still that even Equinor, they're not funding it themselves. It was definitely more than half, I don't remember the exact percentage, is being funded by the Norwegian state. Because Equinor themselves, they don't find it feasible yet. And in our case, we're just a company of about 130 people. We used to be the old municipal electricity company. And we're just not in that place where we can make an investment like that. We don't own any of the wind farms that we build yet because we're too small. Our goal is to get there, and then we have the equity to actually own one day. But currently, we're too small to make that investment with our own money. And so we have partners for that. We're partnering up with, or have been partnering up with, the Finnish utility company Fortum. If you're familiar, they're more of a Nordic thing. They're all over the place. And they're also more of a financial part in this. They bought the wind farms from us when back in 2013, when we were about to crash essentially, and then they got new leadership in and then turned it all around. So we're getting to the point where we are able to look at owning wind farms ourselves, but currently we have not been in that situation. But we still see the value in developing projects in our region, and so we definitely don't want to stop doing that. But for offshore wind, it's been a strategic decision here that we're not getting into that currently. It is just too expensive to do what would be needed for the Norwegian conditions. And that would make it impossible to sell the electricity, because it's just, our electricity is one of the cheapest ones out there to begin with. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you very much for sharing.
So it sounds like you guys have set the bar quite high, or the price quite low, and it's hard to compete with that. And offshore wind might be difficult. I actually have a question. We have two questions in the chat right now. But the first one is from Chelsea Cervantes. Chelsea was on the call, the previous alumni in the industry. She says, thanks Marie for the lovely presentation, smiley face. Unfortunately, I don't have a camera or a mic on my computer right now, so I'll ask this question in the chat. Referring to your slide on a typical wind project timeline, 10 years seems to reach a valid concession. And she's asking, are there any solutions to accelerate this process?
Yes, they are. So for the past couple of years, the government asked the Norwegian Water Resources and Energy Directorate, let me shorten that down to NVE, which is the Norwegian name. They're in charge of any application or anything that has to do with allowing people to build power plants, essentially, or do anything that has to do with water also. They were asked to kind of screen all of Norway and mark the areas that were absolutely no-go zones for wind in the future, and mark the areas that would be preferable. They were big areas that they marked, and they made a report on this. They came up with, was it 7 or something regions? And once they were presented to the public, the people who lived in those regions were livid, because they thought it meant that we're going to build wind farms in this entire area. We're going to build it in this entire area. And then of course, they didn't mark like the capital region. And so it's the classical, oh, you know, living in the outskirts, hating the people in the capital because they don't know what we have, what it's like to live here. And so when this report came out, they realized that, okay, the only thing this report did is make people hate wind power even more. So they decided to scratch those areas because their goal was to make it easier to get a valid concession if you applied for an area within these already accepted areas, and make it more difficult if you were applying for an area outside. But they didn't really have a suggestion as to how that would work, because at the same time they said, oh, but this isn't a building plan and this isn't an exclusion zone. So they kept, yeah, it was a failure. And so they decided, okay, we need to look at this all over again, and we need to look at how the concession system is built up. What are the steps that they need to, that the applicants need to go through? How long are the waiting periods before they get a response? How many people can actually make a complaint and stop the process? And they decided that they're currently in a process of reviving the whole thing and trying to cut it down to maximum 8 years, which, I mean, sure, it's better than 10, but it's a maximum of 8 years. They're also trying to being a little bit more strict on the limits, I guess you could say, of a project, of the scope of the project. Like, you can't just apply for a certain area and then they'll say, yeah, sure, do whatever you want within that area. They're going to be more strict on the maximum height that you're allowed to build. They're going to be more strict on how much you can postpone the project before you start building. They're going to be more strict on how what the installed capacity will be before you can change it. But that also requires them to be more efficient with their handling of the applications. So that goes hand in hand there. I think it's a much better way to do it than what has been done before. It not only does it require more information from the applicant or from what would be me, but it also requires them to be more efficient in actually giving us feedback on the application and going through that whole process. So it's changing, but they're still not opening up to receiving any applications. We're trying to lobby them into getting it done or opening back up by the summer. We'll see. But we were trying to get them to open back up by now. So I don't know, fingers crossed, I guess. And they're probably also going to pull the COVID card and give themselves more time, like we all are.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say are the factors for wind not being as popular in Norway? Is it just like rural opinion of it, or?
We have this attitude in Norway that we built the country on hydropower and we have enough of it. And if we need more power, we can just expand. I've heard so many people ask, but can't you just put more turbines in? Well, if you have a waterfall coming down this way and you have a turbine down there, can't you put just a turbine in the middle? Well, that's not really how it works, but you know, and it's based off of the conversations that I've had with people who are not engineers. It's very easy for them to assume that, sure, we'll just expand, and then not think of the natural consequences that has. I mean, you have to get more water somewhere. That's the only way you can expand. Hydropower is the most efficient way we have of producing electricity. And so just changing the actual turbine isn't going to give you much, maybe a couple of percentages more, but that's not nearly enough.
Yeah. So you're saying a lot of the hydropower has already been developed, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah. We don't have anything else. I mean, they're all protected,
yeah.
of the large scale ones. So I mean, yeah, there are a couple of small scale ones that you could build, and we will because we need it, but that is also not enough.
Yeah.
But we're also not very used to wind power in Norway. We're used to going to Denmark and seeing them there. We don't have this personal relationship with them because it's such a new thing here. And it's been our electricity has been so cheap, and wind power has been still expensive compared to what we already had. And so people haven't been building it here until fairly recently. And I think there have been a lot of projects on hold they've been planned out. They've had a concession, but they've been asking for delay. They've been delaying the whole process because they're waiting for the technology to become cheaper so they can actually build. And that has created kind of this catch-up effect because it's been so expensive, and that once it got feasible for them to go through the project, everybody built at the same time.
Yeah.
And even though on like a national scale or international scale, it's not a lot. We don't have a lot of wind power in Norway, but we're reading about all of them at once. And so people feel overwhelmed. And we have this concept in Norway called allemannsrett, meaning that it's the same as in Iceland, like you're allowed to walk all over the place, essentially, as long as you're not in someone's garden. You can go hiking everywhere. You can essentially pitch a tent anywhere. People aren't allowed to like block off some of the coastline because it's close to their house. Like you're allowed to walk everywhere. And so if a company funded by international money is also a problem, apparently. Money coming into Norway is a problem. If they want to take the local mountain that you usually take your Sunday hikes on, that's been there since you were born, that's been yours, it's extremely emotional for people. And when it's this technology that you don't know about, and people are saying that it's spreading so much microplastic into the nature, it's killing all of the birds, killing all of the insects, then it's hard to argue with facts when all the fake news just keeps coming, and they can say whatever they want, but we can't ever say anything wrong. So we have to be extremely careful when trying to argue our case. Essentially, it's an extremely touchy subject. And my mom told me the other day that she was kind of hesitant to tell some of the people that she met that her daughter works with wind power. But we'll get there. We need it. It has to come.
So it sounds like there's quite a few minds to convince. We do have a question from a Francisco Porturas. This is just a quick, I think, perhaps not as controversial question, but what does the price of electricity range from in your area?
Okay, now I have to convert to other things than Norwegian. Let me just check NORFOLK real quick. So the Nordic system price right now is 52 euros for a megawatt hour. Can I see? So what was that, 54? We're probably down in, it's going to be a difference of like 10 euros, I'd say, at least. Wow. See, okay, I'm not very familiar with this website. Honestly, that's not my expertise. That would just be me Googling right now.
Yeah, that's all right. We also have Mate Oswald on the call. He's got his hand raised. Mate, do you want to just open your mic?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for organizing this event, this series of events. It's very lovely to hear fellow IC graduates, how they are doing in the world. I am also IC graduate. I started my studies there in 2016. And also thank you very much for the presentation. Unfortunately, I was 6 minutes late. Zoom decided to update just when I wanted to join, of course. So maybe I missed important parts in the introduction. So therefore, my question might be out of scope as well. I would like to ask you how the flexibility of the Norwegian electricity market is. So very concretely, if you work with wind turbines and hydro, do you prioritize wind and try to tune down the hydropower plants when you have I don't know, maybe unpredictable wind source, or do you have any expertise in this area?
I don't have much expertise. My colleague on the second floor here that's in production would tell you a lot more about that. But what I do know is that a lot of our power plants, they have to run. If they have water, they have to run at a minimum capacity level, which I'm not quite sure what is. But then as long as they're producing more and then the wind blows, sure, yeah, they will vary where they can. But there is also, we've had extremely low power prices in Norway in 2020 because our reservoirs have been so full. We've had to send a lot of the water just out in the fjord without being able to produce anything from it because there's so much water, and the price has been, well, we haven't had negative prices up here, but I can see now in the region that we are, I'm seeing prices of 14 euros per megawatt hour, and the maximum I'm seeing here is 40. And the system price right now is 54. And this is just the past month here. So we're, to the degree that they can adjust it, yes, they will. But we have a lot of, there are also a lot of regulations on each individual power station. So they can't just shut it off as they want to.
Yes, of course.
It also has to do with the security of supply, right?
Yes, it's understandable. But if you have a surplus of energy, then would you rather, say, shut down a wind power plant or a hydro?
I don't know what they would.
All right, no problem. I'm not here to, maybe it's not your.
Yeah, I
okay,
mean, the electricity that we produce, if we don't produce it locally, they're just going to send it further. So the losses will be higher and we will get paid less. But we've never been into the case where we've had negative prices and it's been vital that we shut anything down. So that's never been a problem for us as far as I know.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much.
I hope that helped.
I think the next person to have their hand up was Caroline.
Hi, Marie.
Hi.
Thanks for your presentation. It looks like you're thriving in Norway. I just have a quick question. Again, not sure if this is outside your scope, and since I'm not too familiar with it, I know that Norway is very, like, one of the leaders in electric vehicles. So I was wondering, for Narvik, how, like, the breakdown is up there, because I know you're saying you have a lot of surplus of electricity. So I didn't know if that's already, like, taken into consideration for kind of dissipating it across different areas like electric vehicles and stuff like that.
That is, it's definitely a problem that our grid people down here, well, now they're supposed to be a different company from this year. So we're not allowed to be using the same name, but we still work in the same building. But so our grid department they're definitely noticing that part, because we haven't had the same amount of electric cars up here that you're seeing in the bigger cities, because the distances up here, I mean, you have to drive much further to get to places, essentially. I mean, not when you're in the downtown area, but you can't just go to the neighboring town and back without actually planning. We don't have the charging stations aren't built around here. They're just this summer, the summer to come, so of 21. They're going to open more charging stations that will reach much farther north. So it's definitely coming, but we're way behind the headlines that you're reading that are based from Oslo or Bergen or Stavanger. Yeah, I mean, we definitely have. I mean, the people that I've had visit here who aren't from Norway commented that we have a lot of electric vehicles here. So it depends on the viewpoint you have, right? But seeing how many electric cars we have elsewhere in Norway, we definitely don't have a lot here. And it's going to be quite a problem for the grid operators to deal with that once you get the fast chargers that I'm reading are supposed to be able to handle 350 kilowatts in the future versus what are they, 50 kilowatts today? Yeah. But that is also a big part of the energy demand that we're seeing, because if we're supposed to, I mean, transport is our biggest area of emission, I guess, or the biggest, it's where it's easiest for us to cut emissions, because we can't do anything, we can't cut anything in the electricity on the producing side, because it's essentially as close to zero as you can get. So for Norway, transport is what we can change. So we'll, yeah, by 2030, they're also hoping to, or is it by 2025, the government has said that we're not supposed to sell any fossil-based cars, new cars. You can sell your used car, but by 2025, all new cars will be electric. And by, I think this year they launched a new strategy and that said that they will require any like public company or like municipalities or the counties, anything that's publicly owned, will have to buy all of their transportation, all of their cars will have to be electric, which is an interesting strategy. I like it. It's very forward thinking, but it also means that the grid companies have a lot of work to do in the future. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other questions in the queue, but I kind of wanted to follow up on Caroline's question because it's similar to something I wrote down earlier. You mentioned that you're starting to get into hydrogen development. Do you see the use of hydrogen vehicles as a potential consumer?
Not in Norway. Not private cars. No. Heavy transport, yeah. Maybe trains, ships, yeah, but not private cars. We're already so far along the path of electric vehicles, and that is also the most efficient way of using that energy is direct electric. So I don't think, I mean, we do want to, so what we're aiming for with the hydrogen strategy is the larger consumers, such as the heavy transport industry. Through the city here, we have like the main highway that goes, or the only road that goes from the south to the north of Norway goes through the city center here. So we have a lot of heavy trucks coming through every day. And so that's where we're coming at. We're looking at it like we want to better the local environment here, and the air pollution that we're noticing during the winter. We want to use the electricity that we have to produce hydrogen that those trucks need. We have one of the longest coastlines in the world. We have a lot of maritime industry, a lot of salmon farms that are also required to cut their emissions, and they can't, their boats can't handle, batteries aren't there yet. They can power boats in that size. So they're looking at, well, the shortcut is biofuel, but that's also not a permanent solution. So they have to do something else and are looking into hydrogen. And so that's the market that we're looking at. We're seeing if we can produce hydrogen with the power that we have here and then distributing it to the heavy transport and or maritime industries that need it.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, a lot of times we hear about electric vehicles for passenger vehicles, but there's not necessarily a big talk on what are you going to do with, like you said, the heavy trucks that burn 30 liters per 100 kilometer.
Yeah.
However much.
The simple solution would be just build trains, right? But the topography in Norway makes that tricky as well, and it doesn't pay off at all. They've been looking for 30 years to build the train rail further north, but it's not gonna happen, I think. Yeah. So the trucks need to go.
Well, hopefully they will soon, and maybe you guys are going to be at the head of that, developing.
We'll see.
The infrastructure. At this point, I'm not seeing any more questions, so I want to just wrap up the Q&A session. I want to give Marie one more round of applause if everybody can join me. There we go. Amazing. Marie, thank you so much for being all with us.
Thank you for having me.
And if anybody has any questions, you had already mentioned and you put on the slide that they can reach out to you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks again, Marie. I'm gonna close the call now.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Marie.